Hey, School of Sales fam, Macy McNeely here. Really excited to give you this episode today, inspired by a coaching call that I did yesterday. So, Academy is our membership program for graduates only. And it's really cool because there's kind of different ways to take action, get feedback, and get results within Academy. There's something called on-demand labs, which is your guide method labs. If you've been through School of Sales, you know that there's a method in each lab. Each time you come and practice, you're practicing a different part of the method. And so you can look at the Academy calendar and say, oh, there's a handling doubts lab coming up this Wednesday at this time. I'm going to sign up for it to get coached on my doubt handling. And this comes very handy in times when, you have like a webinar coming up, or, hey, I got a few sales calls coming up in a couple of weeks and I really want to be polished in my handling doubts, or, hey, I have really low email open rates and my subject lines aren't really hitting. So I'm going to go to the attention getting lab. It's really valuable. And then there's trainings. Like I just did Excellence Week. You might have seen some of that on Instagram, where we did a training on raising your levels of or your standard of excellence in different areas of your life. And it was live training. Some are pre-recorded trainings. There's a whole bank of trainings that you could kind of go through and listen to on the private podcast or watch in your portal. And then there are pods. These are niche specific pods where people input their questions. They send their questions, and then I choose a couple and we coach as a group on the questions. The niches could be like business coaching. It could be like 100K and up. It could be a network marketing pod. It could be like a launch webinar pod. It could be a life coaching pod. I mean, there's all these different niches that we have that you can either be coached or come and just watch. So yesterday, I had the pleasure of coaching a business pod. And it was so fun. I loved it. It was my first one because we kind of transitioned Academy into this model right before I had my baby. So the pods are led by other people. And then yesterday was the first pod that I led. And it was just a really amazing experience. But I noticed something that was consistent with everyone that I coached. And it was that what they wrote was not what they actually needed to be coached on. Or was it like a misunderstanding from what I read in the email versus what they actually meant when I talked to them? So someone said, hey, I want to talk about lead gen versus paid gen, like organic lead generation versus paid organic. My word, sorry. Organic lead generation versus paid lead generation. And I thought she meant like paid advertising. And turns out what she actually meant was like a paid opt-in. And so I was like, oh, wow, I'm so glad I got clarity because then I can give you different advice, right? Someone said, hey, I'm booking all these events to speak. Like everything's going so well, but I'm having a hard time showing up on social. And the direction I thought I was going to take that conversation ended up being totally different than when we actually got on the call. It was totally different after hearing her flush it out, talk it out, and get to the root of what was really the problem. And this is just two examples. Like there were 5 people I coached, and every one of them revealed to me that there was something else really going on. And it made me think about sales calls. Seems like sales calls aren't fun or cool, or there's something that you might avoid or try to skip over through your marketing, through, hey, just look at the sales page. You can find more information here versus actually being in conversation. And I'm saying sales calls, you could do this through like DM voice memos. That's what I prefer to do. I love a good DM conversation, but I also love a sales call for this exact reason, because you can peel back the layers and get to the root quickly, effectively, and you can kind of read the body language and the tone in ways that you could never do in a voice memo conversation or an email. And I'm going to be a guest on a podcast and next week, and I got kind of a list of the general topics that we're going to be talking about, and one of them was about sales calls. It was like, hey, let's see, people don't love the idea of jumping on sales calls. Instead, they'd rather piece together work over email. is there a case to be made for jumping on an actual sales call? And I read that this morning and I instantly thought of the business pod yesterday. And here's why this is so important to actually talk to the root of whatever is going on. If you don't, everything you say goes over their head. Okay. So, for example, let's say someone is telling you, hey, it might be too expensive, or maybe they're saying that, they don't feel like the stage of their business is right to work with you, or they want something else. Like they're just saying something that means it might not be a good fit. And let's say you are answering in a really great way, but you're on this call and you can tell it's just not clicking. Like maybe there's not a lot of head nods. Maybe their eyes are kind of shifting. They're kind of looking through you, not making eye contact with you. And you're like, this isn't really getting to them. You can feel that. And y'all know what I'm talking about. It's like the lights are on, but nobody's home. What you're saying is not really resonating enough for them to lean in and really try to process what you're saying. And if that were the case, my instant thought would be, oh, I'm not speaking to what's really going on. There's something else underneath here. And with School of Sales and sales skills, you have the skill to be able to peel the layers back quickly and get to the root. And maybe it's because their husband isn't supporting them at home and they're having arguments every night when they go to sleep about their business because they're investing so much money. Maybe it's because they have like a ton of debt that they pulled out and they don't believe in themselves and they haven't had any evidence of why their business is going to work. And so they're nervous to invest some more. Of course, this is all different depending on whatever you sell, but there's a deeper issue going on. And unless you speak to that exact issue, you're not really handling the problem. And so with this question from the podcast, it's like, it's easier to jump on or to write an email. I'm like, is it? I think it's actually harder. I think it's actually more stressful because then it ends up being like a solo performance, and sales is not a solo performance. It is a dance with someone. And all too often, people are so focused on their one pitch, their one email, their one form, one way of communication without hearing the other side of it. And I think people also are quick to avoid a sales conversation, because it drains them. It is exhausting. It's kind of like, when someone texts you and their name pops up on your phone and you get a feeling. Maybe it's like, oh, what they're going to say is going to make me laugh. I can't wait to open it. Or you get a feeling of like, oh gosh, like what's wrong? I know whenever I get a call from my son's school, my stomach just like drops because I'm like, oh no, what's wrong? And so people will look at their calendar and they'll see a sales call and they will have a feeling, right? They'll feel scared, nervous. They will dread it all day. They might even feel like they can't even do any other work except think about that sales call. And when they're done, they close their computer and they have to like legit calm down from it because it just exerted so much energy. The best news about this is that that's the case for anything that you're not good at. I know for me, a skill set that I don't necessarily have is cooking. Seems like I always have a ton of food, but never what I need to make a meal, right? Or if I'm following a recipe, I feel like I'm looking at the recipe like 100 times. I'm like, okay, how much of that seasoning? Wait, am I sure it's that seasoning? Okay, wait, did I get the right, measuring stick? Okay, wait, do I put it in now or do I put it in later? And I'm just always going back and forth to the recipe because I don't have the skill. I don't have the intuition. I could absolutely learn it and it would be so much easier, and it actually would just kind of run on autopilot. In fact, while I'm cooking, I probably could think about a few other things. If I really had the skill, I could think about what I was going to do at work the next day. I could think about, I could be in conversation with my kids and my husband. But when I am cooking a recipe, I literally cannot do anything else because it takes every bit of my attention to make sure that I'm doing it correctly and that I don't mess it up. Same with sales skills. Like there's totally a way to have an insane set of sales skills to where you can do 100 other things knowing that there's a sales call happening. And you can whip out an objection handling statement while you're like changing your kid's diaper in a voice memo. It is so possible. And I know that because we've trained over 1,500 people and I see it happen all the time. And so the best way to really be great at sales is to get on a bunch of sales calls. And the way to enjoy it is to master sales skills. I know when I was first getting started, like that was my priority is how can I get on a call today? In fact, I was very quick to get a DM from somebody or be in conversation. And I would just be like, hey, give me your phone number. I'm going to call you between this time and this time. And I would just give him a call. And that was like the absolute best learning experience of my career was doing that all the time. And I still do it. I had a FaceTime call just a couple months ago when we were in a launch mode. I was like, hey, just give me your number. It'll be so much easier. And we were both in the car and we just did a 10-minute conversation and she ended up joining. Now she's Academy member, right? And so I would just really highly, highly encourage you to look for ways to do sales calls versus how can you outmarket your sales call? How can you, out do a website page, a sales page, or get just the right photos so that people will just, get a gut intuition that they want to buy from you because it just doesn't work like that. I hope that this was helpful and I hope you feel encouraged and excited to just jump on the phone with somebody today. Like, honestly, if you are in a DM conversation right now, say, hey, just to save time and to like make sure you're a good fit and to see if this would be helpful for you, let's set up a phone call. I'm available today between 1 and 3. I'll send you the link. Let me know the time that works best for you. And I can't wait to chat then. Like, just assume it, like ask for it, send the link and get it on the calendar and see how you feel. And if you're not feeling good about it, get some sales skills. That is like the biggest piece of advice I could possibly give you. I hope this was helpful and we will talk to you next week.